Yo, yo, it's time to discover the flow. Shout out to the bros. You know, I like to welcome everybody to discover the flow. No matter how you discover the show or discover the bros, now you about to see how far we can go, because it's time for discover the flow. Yeah, cowabunga do. You know live is how we come to you. Turn the levels up when you hear the boys coming through. The Pod Squad giving you just what you need, hitting you with a new special guest every week. Don't you dare hit skip, man, it's Tristan and Kip. DTF Pod about to take you on a trip. Mega Ran bring the heat, yeah. But be clear, I wasn't even supposed to be here. Welcome to Discover the Flow. No matter how you discovered the show or discovered the bros, now you about to see how far we can go, because it's time for Discover the Flow. Let's start the show.
So Adam, how do you pronounce your last name?
There's two ways. The American dialect would be Lucio. If you prefer to say it the Italian way, it's Lucio.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
I do not. Most commonly, people say Lucio, so that's fine with me. Get my can of Mountain Dew. All right.
We're big fans of doing the do.
Oh, me too. That's my stuff.
And now,
ooh, what is that one?
now, Adam, would you say that looks like you?
Okay. Or maybe.
Oh man, maybe 30 years ago.
You can barely see that.
I was like 16.
You're too close. It's not focusing. You're too close.
I'll come in the other room and show you later. I just had to. I had to show you that.
Don't
I got
say that when we're on the air. Don't say shit like that when we're on the air.
That's good.
People are gonna get the wrong idea.
I love Anne. She's an awesome person.
She sent me that like an hour ago. She goes, "Are you interviewing Adam?"
Oh.
I was like, maybe. Why?
It's a possibility.
You'll have to tell her I said hi.
I shall. So, what was that, like a prom or a homecoming or something?
Oh gosh, it was one of the high school dances. Probably, I think it might have been hers. It wasn't a prom. It was one of the high school dances, though. The winter
homecoming or
whatever. It was one of those. I can't remember which one, honestly.
It's the formal before the semi-formal.
Yeah,
we'll make her sound thirsty. We'll make her sound thirsty and claim that it was twerp, so she asked him.
Oh,
because that's the turnabout dance, right?
Right.
Where the girls have to ask the guys.
Right. It was for her school. I remember that, Mother Macaulay. So it was the event at her school. So she did have to ask me.
Yeah, my school they called it Sadie Hawkins. So
yeah, I've heard of it referred to as twerp, turnabout, Sadie Hawkins, all different types of things. So, but no, it's good to have you here, man. It's an interesting topic that I've always kind of been entertained by over the years. But Adam, why don't you tell our audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Adam Lucio, and I am a storm chaser / tornado tracker. I go all over the country to track, report, and film the weather that most people try to avoid.
How did you even get into this? Like, what led towards this? Would you call it a hobby?
It started out as a hobby, and now I've turned it into my career. But it started at a very young age. I can't remember when. I was always fascinated with the sound of thunder, the lightning of storms that we did get in the Chicago area. I grew up in Chicago, so the storms that we did get, I was fascinated by. And that kind of sets me apart from a lot of people in my field, because most of them, if you ask them that question, they'll say it was the movie Twister, or they had a tornado hit their house when they were a kid and it kind of sparked this interest, or they were afraid of storms, so they had to learn about them to get over their fear, and then it turned into fascination. But for me, it was just, for as long as I can remember, I was just fascinated with thunderstorms. And I saw videos of tornadoes on TV, and I said, I want to go out there and see that.
Do you remember your earliest memory of a storm that fascinated you instead of scaring you?
My first really vivid memory of a storm. And I actually was a little bit scared of this one. I was at Six Flags Great America, and I was maybe 5, 6 years old. I can't remember. I was very young. And a really, really bad storm came through when we were in line for, I think it was the Iron Wolf roller coaster. So we're at the top. We're getting ready to, just a few rides away from boarding, and all of a sudden the sky just turned black. And it's only like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sky turned all these crazy colors, and there actually was a small funnel cloud in the air. And I was a little bit scared that time because I was very young. I was still kind of fascinated. I couldn't keep looking, but I was nervous because that was the first time I truly felt exposed. Here we are at the top of this very tall, if you've ever ridden an Iron Wolf, you got to go all the way up the stairs and you get to the top, and then there's the platform there. So I was very exposed in that moment. So that's my first vivid memory of a thunderstorm going way back when.
So are you one of those
I
people?
remember.
Are you one of those
Go ahead.
people like I am, and I know Tristan is as well? Are you one of those people that sleeps better during a storm?
I don't sleep at all during storms.
Okay.
I'm so obsessed with storms that if I know there's lightning, like within 2 hours, my face is glued to the window just to try to see it. My body will not let me sleep if it knows that there's thunderstorms in the area.
Interesting.
It's part of the obsession. Like, I have to see it. I have to hear it. It can be the lamest, most boring storm in the world, and I will stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning just to see a flash of lightning.
I remember the first time I was ever enthralled by a storm instead of being scared by it. I want to say I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and we lived in an apartment complex out in Tinley Park, and we had all went down into the first floor, like in the hallways, as our safe area. And I remember looking out the windows into the parking lot, and I could see a tornado coming towards the buildings, and then it went back up, and I ran for some reason to the other side of the building just because that was my natural instinct. And I watch it drop back down about 2 blocks away into a pond and continue on. And I was like, that's the wildest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life in real life, but it was the coolest thing ever. I wasn't scared by it. I was just enthralled.
They are captivating to watch. The way they move, you don't realize how the sky can move until you're watching one of these things. It's very fluid. It's very animated, and they're cool. It's a cool phenomena to watch, despite the destruction and stuff that happens with them.
I've always been fascinated by cloud shapes and cloud formations. Mammatus clouds are incredible to look at.
Oh yeah.
And I see you got a supercell behind you there on the wall.
Oh yeah, that was a beauty. That was outside of Rapid City, South Dakota.
Is that a picture you guys took? That
is a photo that I took. I guide tornado tours as part of my career, and we do a late season tour in July every year. It's one of my favorite tours to do. We base it out of Rapid City, South Dakota, and then this supercell happened about just 10 miles southeast of the city. There's a little microclimate in that area. If you've ever been to that area where Mount Rushmore and all that stuff is, those hills, those mountains actually help create supercell thunderstorms in the summer, and we'll go up there and catch these. And that is actually a 2-foot by 3-foot gloss metal print of a photo that I took.
That is cool.
I want to say it was 2019 or 2020.
It's weird. I've only ever experienced it one time in my life where it was completely pitch black in the middle of the daytime. But I remember there was a storm chaser that lived in our apartment complex and took some of us up on the roof where we could watch it from a distance. And it was like an eerie calm.
Yeah, the old calm before the storm sang. Do you have to remember what his name was? It's a small community.
No. No, I was about 15 at the time. I just remember that he was a cool guy that all the teenagers around there was like, wait, you do what? What?
Yeah, I get that reaction a lot too. And then they say, I want to come with you one time. And then they never can because the scheduling is so off the wall. You know, I can't pick when I do these things, which makes this career very difficult. But yeah, I get that same reaction a lot. They're like, "Wait a minute, you're one of those?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was dropped on my head as a child."
So where do you predominantly go to do this?
Just about anywhere. I spend a lot of my time, of course, in traditional Tornado Alley, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Lately, the last couple of years have been very active in Nebraska, so I spent a lot of time in Nebraska the last couple of years. But I've chased these things everywhere from Montana to Alabama into Ohio to New Mexico. Pretty much anywhere in the country where there's a threat for tornadoes and I can get there logistically, I will be there.
So
Now, go ahead.
I'm just curious, and I know that this is going to sound like a cheesy question, I guess, but how much of what they showed in things like Twister or Twisters, as the case may be, how much of that kind of stuff is actually true to what you guys do?
Well, first off, I was in the movie Twisters as an extra, so that was fun. If you've seen the movie, there's that scene where Tyler's red truck goes airborne briefly in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right immediately after that, the camera pans out, and there's a guy holding the camera with his mouth open, like this. That's me. So if
Okay.
you're going to go back and watch that movie, you will see me in there for about 5 seconds. So that part is true because it was me. But they're movies, so there is some truth to them. Storm chasers are very competitive, the way they show in the movies. That is 100% a fact. The tornado special effects are pretty good, a little bit embellished. Again, it's a movie. I love the movie Twister, but tornadoes don't growl like they do in the movie Twister. So, the premise of Twister, it was based off of real.
I love how nobody knows it's there, and then suddenly there's lightning, and boom, now you can see it. But like, what? You couldn't fucking hear that? It's like 100 yards away.
Yeah,
they kind of sound like a freight train if I remember correctly. I've been in one or two, but
they do have that rumble sound, And then in the movie Twisters, the thing they got totally wrong, besides the whole, we can disrupt a tornado. Yeah, that'll never happen. But the one thing they got wrong was the scene where they were at the rodeo and they were all caught off guard.
Yeah.
No self-respecting storm chaser or weather nerd is going to be caught completely off guard by a tornado that just suddenly shows up where they're at. Like, we are so glued to our phones and our weather apps and the computers and the forecast models that it's almost impossible to catch a storm chaser off guard. So, like you would expect with any movie, they got some things right, and then other parts, it's like, yeah, no, that's not how it works.
The technology always looked a little impossible to me with some of the stuff that they were doing, like setting up the sensors and that, like the Dorothy concept sounded like it would actually kind of make sense, pseudoscience wise.
Dorothy was actually based off a real research project they did in the 70s. Now, I don't know if every button and sensor and stuff like that was done to scale in the movie, but that really was a project that they did where they had the big drum full of sensor probes and they were trying to get it in front of the tornado. That actually happened, and it was not very successful.
Surprise!
They tried. They were doing it.
That's an interesting thing to find out. I like talking with people when we talk to them about their chosen profession, and when there's a movie or a TV show about it, seeing if they like to call bullshit on any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like we had a gentleman on, Dr. Phil Plate, who's an astronomer, and he was talking about the movie Armageddon, and just calling bullshit left and right on different stuff on that.
He said the early part of his career was watching movies and calling bullshit on it just because there's so many of them.
That's always fun to do. But, I love both those movies. They're both so much fun to watch. And they've left their mark on storm chasing culture for sure. In the movie, they always pass each other and they do the little twisty thing with their fingers. We've all started doing that this year now. Whenever we see another storm chaser, we're all starting to do the little twisty thing now. So, they're fun. You don't go into it looking for it to be scientifically accurate. You go into it looking to be entertained, and they're very entertaining movies.
Whenever I'm driving in bad weather and it's real windy and rainy, I'm always tempted to be like, cow, another
Yep,
cow,
yep. I get
No, that's
cow
the same
question
cow.
all the time. Have you ever seen a flying
right?
cow? I
Just
personally,
praying for somebody to be like, no, that's the same one.
iconic.
So, what is a multiple vortex tornado?
So the best analogy I can give for a multi-vortex tornado is picture a merry-go-round. You know how, and then you have the little teacups on the merry-go-round. So you have the whole merry-go-round is spinning, and then you have the little teacups that are spinning on the merry-go-round. So that's kind of essentially what the structure of a multi-vortex tornado is.
So are they outside of the main funnel or are they inside of the main funnel?
They're within it. So they're technically called suction vortices. So yeah, they're kind of like mini tornadoes within the parent tornado. That's kind of the best analogy that I can come up with for that. And we don't necessarily know what type of weather conditions are at play to get a multi-vortex tornado versus your Wizard of Oz elephant trunk tornado or your big giant wedge tornado. These are still some of the things that we're trying to figure out, we're trying to study, and we're trying to learn. But there's all so many different types of tornadoes.
That multi-vortex tornado sounds pretty devastating.
Yeah, and those are the ones that are responsible for the erratic damage that you see. Well, how come this one house is completely flattened, and then the two houses on either side of it aren't touched? It's because that unfortunate house got impacted by just one of those little suction vortices within the broader parent circulation. That's how you can end up with such sporadic damage in some of these tornadoes.
So what is the worst? What is the worst tornado that you've been witness to?
There's a couple different ways to answer that question. If we're going by official NWS ratings, that would be the Moore, Oklahoma EF5 in 2013, May 20th, 2013. It was the last official EF5 that we've had in this country. There hasn't been an EF5 rated tornado since then. So officially rated, yeah, that was the worst one. I've seen and experienced tornadoes that I believe could have been more intense. Since then, I've had experiences where I've been too close to tornadoes and been hit by them. So that was obviously a little bit more intense. The Moore tornado I saw from a couple miles away, a safe distance. Wayne, Nebraska, also in 2013 was an EF4 tornado that I got hit by. Positioned a little bit too close. It blew out the back window in my SUV, that sort of thing. So from a personal experience standpoint, that was the worst one. So yeah, there's just a couple different ways that I can answer that question.
Because you mentioned 2013 a couple of times, I got kind of a two-parter. How close is the storm chasing community?
It's a small community. It's larger than you might think. There's probably about maybe 5,000 of us across the country. So, which sounds like a lot, but in the grand scope of things, it's still a very small community. And it's close in the sense that everybody knows everybody, but not everybody likes everybody. So it's very competitive. It is somewhat divided into cliques. You got this group and that group, and I have my core group of colleagues that I generally associate with more. But so we're very close in some aspects, and then there's that other team that we're like, ugh, it's them. So everybody knows everybody. It's like that small town, right? Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. Everybody knows everybody's gossip. So it's close in that sense. But I'll be the first one to admit not everyone gets along.
I was in prep for this. I was reading about different stuff, and one story that kept coming up was in Bennett, Colorado, the Twistex crew that lost three lives to a tornado in 2013. Like, do you know that story or anybody that was involved in that?
Yes, it was actually the El Reno tornado, May 31st, 2013. That was Tim Samaras, his colleague Carl Young, and his son Paul Samaras. I was friends with them, so they were colleagues of mine. I knew them, very good guys. Very tragic event, notorious event in the storm chase community. That was,
if you don't mind me asking, what went wrong there?
yeah. So the El Reno tornado. This is El Reno, Oklahoma. It is the largest tornado ever recorded at 2.6 miles wide. That's like, to put that into perspective, Midway Airport is a square mile. So this tornado was almost 3 times the size of Midway Airport. So that kind of puts it into perspective how big this tornado was. And that tornado, not only was it the largest tornado on record, it did 2 simultaneous things that caught a lot of storm chasers off guard. It dramatically shifted directions. It actually did 3 things. It dramatically shifted directions. It was moving southeast. So you have a southeast moving tornado, you're positioning with it, you're staying with it, kind of what to do, with a southeast moving tornado, how to stay ahead of it. But then it abruptly changed directions and it hooked to the northeast. At the same time it hooked to the northeast is when it grew. It was only about 1.5 miles wide at that point. But when it made that turn is when it expanded to 2.6 miles wide. Also, at the same time, the forward speed increased from about 35 miles an hour to, I think it was about 55 or even 60 miles an hour. So it did these 3 things simultaneously, and it caught a lot of storm chasers off guard. I was on that tornado. We were actually behind it. We fell behind it, so we weren't in front of it. Probably saved our lives that day because the road that I wanted to take was one of the roads where a lot of chasers got hit. A crew from the Weather Channel was also thrown by that same tornado. So it wasn't just, unfortunately, those 3 that were impacted. And there's some video from another storm chaser where you can kind of see this happening. He's driving east on the road, and they were only chasing in a Chevy Cobalt, a small little car, which I always thought was kind of like, do you really want to be doing this? And the tornado was so strong, their car just would not accelerate. It was a gravel road, and the car just wouldn't go forward. And it got the better of them, and it threw them into a field. So very, very tragic event that was.
How regular or often does something like that happen?
That was the first time that 3 storm chasers were killed by a tornado. There have been other fatalities, but they involve traffic accidents. But that was the first time that storm chasers were actually killed by a tornado. It hasn't happened since, so it's a very rare occurrence. And for a tornado like the El Reno tornado is a very rare beast as well. There hasn't been another tornado since then that has exhibited that behavior, to be that big and make all those sudden last minute changes that tornado did. It's only a matter of time before it happens again. Nature will always repeat itself given enough time. And I fear for the day that happens because there are so many more storm chasers now than there were even, 12 years ago? There's so many more storm chasers now than there were 12 years ago that the day we get another El Reno tornado, I can guarantee there will be chasers caught in it.
I've had discussions with other people about their professions, like tattoo artists and stuff like that think like what they do should be licensed to kind of cut down on the amount of people that do it dangerously or to prevent people who aren't qualified. Like, is there any kind of thought like that in the community? Because like obviously anybody could hop in their car and say that they're going out storm chasing, but I know there are people who are qualified and who take it seriously. Like, how often do you run into these people where like you need to stop? You're gonna get yourself killed. You're not prepared. You don't know what you know.
I run into them just about every chase, unfortunately, and it is a problem. There are a lot of we call them yahoos. A lot of yahoos out there, and it's funny you bring that up.
Seems so nice.
Yeah, there's actually legislation that Oklahoma is trying to pass right now to do just that, to kind of create this licensed tier of storm chasers, and it's extremely controversial right now. Like, this bill was literally just introduced like 2 months ago, so this is brand new, hot off the press topic here. Extremely controversial. The chase community's just been at war over this thing for the last 2 months. So you bring that up, and yeah, they're trying to do just that, but the big problem is how do you define who a professional storm chaser is? Like, you ask me, in my opinion, I'm a professional. I do this as my career. But you ask a chaser who's only been chasing for a year, they're going to say they're a professional. Everybody thinks they're a professional. So how exactly do you define that? Is it an official degree from a college? I know degreed meteorologists who are the worst storm chasers out there. They're really smart, but you get them out there, you get them out in the field, and they can't identify the front end of the front door of an open barn. And is it a person who's seen 100 tornadoes, 10 tornadoes, 200 tornadoes? Like, there's really no way to define this. Storm chasing isn't a career that you apply for. There is nowhere you can go to fill out an application to become a storm chaser. You have to find ways to make it a career. There are media chasers who get hired by news stations and stuff, but it's through recognition. A news station they'll notice you after time and say, hey, this guy, he gets the good footage. He does good at reporting. And then they'll say, hey, do you want to come chase for us? I could never walk into a station and fill out a job application to become a storm chaser for them. So it is very difficult just to even define what a professional storm chaser is. So that's one of the biggest challenges to this. It creates all these buddy systems. The bill in Oklahoma wants to give priority to news station chasers so they can get this special license. And the bill actually grants them the rights to act like police officers. They can flip on emergency lights. They can speed to get to the storm. They can run red lights. I mean, it's very reckless language in this bill. And all you have to do is be associated with a TV station. As you can imagine, like, it creates this buddy system now where, you could be chasing for 2 years, but just because you know someone who works at the TV station, they vouch for you and you get a license. Like, you can see the problems that there already are with this bill. And some of these media chasers are the most reckless ones out there. Like, they're horrible. That's actually a very hot topic right now, and it's an ongoing issue. We're hoping the bill fails. Oklahoma State Highway Patrol is extremely against it. So we're hoping.
Is there anywhere it's illegal to?
No, there is nowhere where storm chasing is like flat out illegal. There's nowhere where you have to have any type of license. There's nothing like that. It's pretty much anyone could do it. Like you said, you can just hop in your car and off you go. So how I started. That's what I started doing.
So going back a little bit, we were talking about people just kind of, like you said, jumping in their car and chasing after storms. Do you feel like social media is kind of spurring that on? Everybody having access to a YouTube channel or, Facebook Live or something like that, that now they think they can do what you do. Yeah.
So because of these advances, with social media and stuff and technology, storm chasing is easier now than it ever was before. It's actually so easy now to start building this career. Social media has allowed you to make more money doing from it. I make a ton of, it's kind of stupid how much money that I can make off social media, Facebook and YouTube. We didn't have this stuff like 10 years ago. So now you're getting that return on investment. Like, you can make the career happen for yourself. And it's brought out folks who have no interest in the science, no interest in meteorology. They don't even care to learn about storm structure, or they don't even care to learn how to forecast the storms. They just see the potential to get that viral video, throw it up on a live stream, get out there, and they start chasing. And those folks are a problem. I'll be the first to admit it. And everybody has the right to go out there and do it, but not everybody should.
It sounds like it makes them more reckless too. That they Absolutely. Would be, just to get that perfect shot. I'm going to drive straight across this cornfield and into that tornado to get that cool shot.
Well, then
I know it's a little extreme, but
it becomes just that now. The bar is raised so much higher. You've got to get a more extreme shot. You've got to get closer. Just filming a tornado in an open field from 2 miles away doesn't cut it anymore. It's just like anything else. The pendulum swings further and further towards that extreme direction. And, people are, in the last 5 or 6 years, there have been more chaser-related car accidents. Like, you can't get a big setup without there being a chaser-related car accident these days. It's becoming a real problem. The storm chaser traffic is more dangerous than the storms at this point.
And I got to imagine the people who aren't actually even really collecting data and doing real scientific work are a real pain in the ass, getting in the way of people who do, when you guys already have such a narrow window of time to do what it is you actually do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the hardest thing about this is I can't just go out there and say I'm going to go see a tornado on April 5th. Like it doesn't work like that. We only get some years are very
Yeah.
slow. So when your one opportunity is blown by something like that, it can be very frustrating.
It's like trying to get work done with a toddler in the house, you know?
Yep, absolutely. And to circle back, it's how do you where do you draw that line as to who should be out there, who shouldn't? Some people you can look at and go, oh gosh, they're so reckless, they're so bad. Like, yeah, you don't need to be out here. But if you're just starting out, you've only been doing it for a couple of years. Naturally, you're not going to be as experienced, so you're still going through that learning process. So some of your mistakes and stuff, they're a little bit more innocent. You're still learning, but other people they're just blatant about it. So
It almost seems like something where you could do like a journeyman, like an apprentice journeyman type of thing. Not unionizing. I'm not saying unionizing or anything like that, but
No.
doing this apprentice and journeyman and master storm chaser kind of ranking. So
Yeah.
you actually have to define how many years you're
Yeah.
doing this and how many storms, like everything that you said. How do you define this? Kind of you mix all of that together and kind of establish here's part 1, part 2, part 3.
and even going to back to how many years. Not every year is the same. Some years you don't get a lot of tornadoes. So I could say, yeah, I've been chasing for 4 years, but there's no tornadoes that happened. They were very quiet years. There weren't any strong tornadoes. Or you can chase like the last 2 seasons we've had. 2023 and 2024 were exceptionally active. They were extremely active tornado seasons. The last two, I saw over 100 tornadoes in just these past 2 years. Okay, it took me like my first 6 years to see 100 tornadoes, and then I saw 100 just in the last two alone. So again, that makes it very difficult because anyone can say they've been chasing for 5 years, but that doesn't necessarily mean you were learning, because you take a year like 2012, for example. I chased a dozen times in 2012, and about 8 of them I just sat under a blue sky because storms didn't happen. So again, it's almost impossible to find a way to quantify this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the Wild West out there.
When you're talking about anybody being able to get out there, it keeps going back in my brain. Kip and I have been involved in independent wrestling for 25 years, and there used to be an athletic commission in the Midwest, which was mostly bullshit because basically you were just paying to go get a license that you didn't have to qualify for.
It was a complete racket.
Yeah. But we've had the same problem too, where just about anybody can buy a ring and pads and gear and get in there and say, hey, I do this too, which is why we totally understand. Yeah, which is why we totally understand how like these people who, yeah, they might have the same love for it that you do, but they don't have the wherewithal and the knowledge to do it safely,
Right, or even just the state of mind to do it responsibly. That.
Yeah.
Some of these folks, they've only been chasing for a year, but you can't give them advice because they already think they know everything, and it's like, hold on, like nature's gonna humble you if you go in there too hot and heavy. Trust me, she will.
So in your eyes, what makes a good storm chaser?
What makes a good storm chaser, in my opinion, is you don't have to drive recklessly and break the law to get the storm. You're good at forecasting. You put yourself there before the storm happens. You keep your composure while filming the storms. You're not screaming your head off and panicking and So you keep a good composure. You're reporting the severe weather either via a live stream, or we have software on our laptops and phones where we can report the severe weather to the National Weather Service to help them issue the warnings. So you're also reporting the severe weather to help that warning process. You're contributing to the warning process to alert the public keep people safe. You're not just out there youping it up to get, your 15 minutes of fame in your tornado video, which that's a goal for everyone. It's a goal for me to get that extreme shot, of course. But there's also a duty, there's a job that comes along with it to do it respectfully and responsibly. And the best storm chasers exercise that. They don't have to drive reckless. They don't have to put crazy light bars and stickers and decals all over their car to say, look at me, I'm a storm chaser. That they're seeking attention more than just doing the duty. So that's my opinion of what makes a storm chaser good. And to be able to do it consistently too. There are some guys, they just go out there and they nail it every setup. Yeah, every set, it's like they don't miss. And there's some out there that they can't seem to find the right tornado, and you could tell them, hey, go here, and then they drive the opposite way. So you got to be able to do it consistently as well.
So, all right, walk me through this. Let's say you get an alert, however you guys are alerted to the weather itself or that something's coming. There's a storm coming, it's X amount of miles away. What's next? What's your process? Like, what are you guys doing? What are you trying to accomplish?
Right. So a storm has gone up. I'm out there in the field. Storm has gone up. Tornado warning comes out. It's about to produce. I've got to look at the road network, and I've got to plan my intercepts to get myself in the right position. There's all different types of storm structures. That's a whole nother book of science. So you have to understand the type of storm that you're chasing, because they're not all the same. There's supercells, there's bow echoes, there's derechos, there's LP supercells, HP supercells, classic supercells. Each one of these is structured differently. The tornado is in kind of a different spot of the storm. And you have to recognize what kind of storm you're chasing and understand, first off, what direction it's moving, how fast is it going, where it's at, where is it at in its life cycle. Is the tornado about to touch down? Is it going to touch down in 5 minutes? You have to analyze all this stuff very fast and then kind of plan your attack to get in the right position and not get hit by it. Nobody's trying to get hit by the tornadoes. Sometimes it happens. So it's very fast paced. It's very chaotic. Once we're in position, once things are observed, I'm usually running a live stream. So I report via live stream, hey, this tornado has touched down here. It's moving northeast, approximately this fast. Here's where it's going. You got to know kind of where you're at. Here's the next city, that's in the path. Sometimes I'll report directly to the National Weather Service if my stream is down. We don't have strong internet everywhere to be able to run a live stream. But so I have the software. It's called Spotter Network. You can get it on your phone and your radar. There's a form that you open up. You fill out the form. Here's what's happening. So I'll report that way. And then it's just staying with it and following it. Film it, document it to make sure that you know what happens and where. And I've had video footage that has been used in insurance cases in court for people who have had their homes hit by a tornado. The insurance company says, no, that's not tornado damage. That's just wind, or your roof was always in bad shape. And they've called me up and said, hey, you actually have video of the tornado hitting my house. Can we use this in the court case? And I said, sure, here you go. That is one way I never thought that my video footage would be used. But it's also very important to document these. It's evidence.
We live stream video games. You're so much cooler.
It's a game with Mother Nature, is what it is. She makes a move, I got to make a move. She makes a move, I got to make a move. And she always has the upper hand. It's just me pretending like I can win. Getting out of there alive is the victory. But sometimes your car will be destroyed, or you'll be covered with mud or something. But you get out of there alive. That's the victory.
Adam, are you old enough to remember the August 28th, 1990 Plainfield tornado?
Vaguely. I was 7 years old at the time, so my only memory of that storm is the green sky that was cast over Chicago that day.
And it was almost the entire city could see that sky. It was wild. So
it's kind of a vague, fuzzy memory. That was like my first or second day back at school. I was walking home with my mom that day, and we got to our intersection of 63rd Street in Austin,
Mhm.
And I remember the green sky. My mom just hurrying us to get home, my sister and I, very fast. Bad storm is coming. And she's dragging my arm. We got to get home. We got to get home. It's a very vague memory, but it's there.
I was doing a little research on it, knowing that we were going to be having this conversation. Kind of wanted to sound like I knew a little bit of something about this.
That was a very notorious event.
It was a notorious. I remember it destroyed Plainfield High School, except for one wall of the gym, and it just so happened to be the wall of the gymnasium that all the people were lined up, tucked underneath, hiding under.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. Like enough, I think 28 people perished in that tornado.
28 or 29.
Yeah.
But what was weird about that, and I'm just curious because you were talking about the weird behavior of that Oklahoma tornado. Was that Oklahoma? I think you said it was. This one had some weird behavior too, and it came from the northwest instead of normally it would come from the southwest.
Yeah,
right?
that storm took a very unusual path. We don't get a lot of tornadoes that move northwest to southeast. Severe weather wasn't even really in the forecast that day. Of course, our weather forecasting wasn't nearly as good back then, but that storm, from what we've been able to analyze in the past, that was what we call an HP supercell. I mentioned that earlier. That stands for high precipitation. Without getting too scientific and nerdy here, it basically means the tornado is cloaked in a wall of rain, so you can't see it. So there's no pictures of it. There's no video of it. Nobody even knew a tornado was coming. Just, you look out in the distance and you see, oh, here comes rain. That's what it looked like that day. But that rain was obscuring an F5 tornado. Nobody knew it was coming. A fun fact about that tornado is that is the only F5 tornado that has occurred in the country in the month of August. So a little bit of tornado notoriety for the Chicago area. We have the only August F5 in the whole country. Was that tornado?
I read that since you said about the tornado in August, there could be tornadoes every month of the year. Like, have there been tornadoes in the winter?
Oh yeah,
is that something that's?
It seems like it's becoming more a thing. The first tornado I saw last year was February 27th out there by Hinckley, Illinois. Which, if you know where that is, it's kind of west. It's near the DeKalb area out there by Shabana Lake State Park. If anyone knows where that is, that was February 27th last year. Illinois, I think they're third.
We were on the cruise.
Illinois, the state of Illinois, the third biggest tornado outbreak that the state has had was December 1st, 2018. So winter tornadoes are a thing. Of course, they're not as common, but they do happen. So you can get tornadoes any month of the year. It's just the conditions, they just have to be present, and they'll happen.
I have to ask this of every person that we interview about their profession. What's your favorite thing, like the coolest thing that you've learned about in your time as a storm chaser or experience? That if somebody's like, what's it like being a storm chaser? That you're like, oh, check this out. I got to tell you this story.
I think it has to do with the places that I visit. I would never, ever, ever go to half the places that I've been if the storms didn't lead me there. Like, take for example, Riva, South Dakota. The town population is 4. The post office, the gas station, the town hall, and I think the residents all live in the same building. And their claim to fame is turtle racing. They race turtles. They have a track where they race turtles there. And
all 4 people.
Man, and I thought Villa Grove was small.
Right.
I pull in there and I think I would never ever visit this place if I wasn't here for storm chasing. And there's dozens of places like that all across the country that apply to this. And then I meet the people and I get to hear their stories. Everybody has a story about the weather. I remember this one in 1962. Everybody has a story. So it's the whole lifestyle that really is the most addicting part. It's the traveling. I like to drive. I like the open road. And it's just, I see so much of the country as a result of this. Just places I would never go. Because when you plan a vacation, you're going to all the vacation hotspots. You're going to Vegas. You're going to New York. You're going to the amusement parks, the sports arenas, the concert halls. You're not going to Riva, South Dakota, home of the turtle races. So you get to see all these quirky, cool kind of, this hidden part of America that kind of gets lost in time.
World's largest ball of twine.
Yeah,
Right.
that stuff is out there. It's a real thing. It's kind of cool. There's the town of it's not Quanah, Texas. I think it's Memphis, Texas. They have the world's largest Rubik's cube. Like there's this town in Texas. There's 300 people that live there. There's a giant Rubik's cube that's the size of a house. Like you would never see this stuff otherwise. The only reason I go through there is hey, there's going to be bad weather here.
I'm imagining a giant tornado ripping through a Rubik's cube now, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, that would be a shot to have one day. Just given enough time, unfortunately, one day it's probably going to happen. It's just a matter. It's never a matter of if. It's just a matter of when. The same thing for Chicago. It's not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when.
Since we've spent a considerable amount of time on the topic, before we start wrapping it up here, if you could give advice to someone who's an amateur going out trying to do this about doing it the right way and being safe, what would you tell them?
Yeah, my first piece of advice would be to just keep your distance from the storms. Learn the storm structure. Learn how they evolve. Learn how the storms behave and move, because they do change directions. They change shapes. So take your time and learn the storm structure and the storm morphology. These days in the chase, it's all about getting close. Who can be the closest? Who can get the most extreme video? It's doing that doesn't necessarily make you a better chaser. Like that's just your style. Some people like to get close. Others like to hang back and take pictures of the whole storm structure. No way is better than the other. So my advice would be not to get caught up in the mindset that you have to be extreme. You don't have to be extreme. But that's a choice that some make. But you don't have to be extreme. Go slow, take it easy, learn the storm structure, keep your distance until you're more comfortable. You'll start to recognize patterns after a couple of years. It's all just patterns. Tornadoes develop from a process. They're not random. They don't just plop down from a random part of the storm. There's a very systemic process that has to occur in nature before you get the tornado. You can identify these steps along the way and plan your moves accordingly. But it takes years to recognize this stuff. So just hang back until you're comfortable.
Right on. Well, before we get on to the Pivo questionnaire, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and your videos and stuff?
Sure. You can just look up my name, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Just search my name, Adam Lucio. The picture will most likely be a tornado. All my social channels, they got pretty decent sized followings, especially Facebook. So if you go, there are imposter pages out there. I guess I've reached that status. So if you go to the page and you see it only has 200 followers and 5 likes, that's not the real me. Facebook, I've just crossed 180,000 followers. YouTube, I'm crossing 15,000 subscribers. Twitter, I've got about 15,000 people on there. So they're all sizable social accounts. So you just type my name and I should pop up. I usually put WX. That's kind of the abbreviation for weather. So it'll be Adam Lucio WX. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/tornado chasing. You can find me there. That's where I'm most active, is Facebook.
Right on. Well, Kip, you want to take it away?
Yeah, Adam, the last thing we like to do in an interview is we like to ask some questions of you. They're kind of rapid fire questions. You can take time and explain your answer if you want to. It's up to you how you want to do it. These are the questions that were made famous by Bernard Pivot and James Lipton from Inside the Actors Studio. Adam, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Storm.
What is your least favorite word?
Salad. I don't like health food. I'll jump for jump.
I'm 100% with you.
This man is grabbing shit off the shelf at the Circle K and going.
That's me.
What sound or noise do you love?
Thunder.
What sound or noise do you hate?
My car breaking down.
What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Psychologist.
What profession other than your own would you not like to try?
Anything involving a cubicle.
Okay. Creatively, what turns you on?
The sky.
And in the same vein, what turns you off?
Oh, what turns me off? AI.
A clear sky.
Yeah, clear sky, right? Anything that's AI or fake, not real.
Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
That would be. I use them all so frequently. They're all kind of my favorite. I jumble them up together. They say I have this own Adam language, but I got to go with the big one. Fuck, I say that word so dang often.
I get creative with my cursing as well.
I do too.
I'm a mix and match kind of guy.
So am I. I'm like Ned Flanders. Yeah, I'll get on something and I'll be like shitty tick fuck, like and it's just gibberish. It's like I say my brain is like a lotto ball machine. All the words are swirling in there, and then when I open my mouth, just whatever's closest is what flies out.
All right.
Our most common answer has been cunt, but everybody says they want to use it the English, like in the English way, like very cheeky.
Mm-hmm. I don't use that one a whole lot sometimes, but
they all want to say kunt.
Oh yeah.
All right. Last question for you. Our last question for you here. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
I'm going to give you another chance to catch that tornado you missed. Go back.
I like that.